In part 2 of chapter 17, we will look at facing one's own death. And we'll talk about Kubler-Ross's stages of dying, her 5 stages of dying. You can see them listed in this picture here. And we will also talk about the context in which people die. Basically, where is it that people die? So let's begin with Kubler-Ross's stages of dying. As you can see, there are 5 of them here. The first is denial and isolation. The dying person denies she or he is really going to die. It is often the first stage that anyone goes through when they find out that their death is imminent. You say, no, it can't be me. It's not possible. So it is a denial, believing it not to be true. This is what may lead many people to seek second or third opinions. It's part of the denial process. The second stage is anger. The dying person's denial gives way to anger, resentment, rage, and envy. This is often nicknamed the why me stage, kind of signifying their anger at the news of that they are dying. The third stage is bargaining. The dying person develops hope that death can be postponed. They often enter into bargaining or negotiation with some higher power, as they try to defy death. Give me more life and I will be a better person. The fourth stage is depression. This is where we see withdrawal, crying, and grieving. The dying person is coming to accept the certainty of death. This depression is part of the normal process, and it is sometimes an attempt by the dying person to detach themselves from their love objects. By love objects, I mean their loved ones, their maybe things that they own that they love, but there may be a real detachment and even a pushing away of others. And this is, once again, it's part of the normal process to see that. The person may have a real need to contemplate their impending death on their own. And so they may push others away and distance them so that they can have some peaceful reflection time. They may want to engage in a life review, for instance, and look back at their life and think about its meaning and what they've done throughout their lives. Finally, the fifth stage is acceptance. So as it says here, this usually involves a sense of peace. It is the end of the dying struggle, then the final resting stage before death. Okay, and those are Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of dying. Does everyone go through all 5? Certainly not. Can the order change? Yes, but this represents a typical sequence of how a person deals with their impending death. Now, as far as the context in which people die, as it says here, more than 80% of Americans die in institutions or hospitals, and it certainly hasn't always been that way. In 1900, if we go back to 1900, people died younger back then, and most people died at home. They were being cared for by their family members, their loved ones, and they would die peacefully in their own beds at home. Remember, back in 1900, we had a 47-year life expectancy, and so as a younger adult, people were willing to accept that people would die at younger ages, and so they would give them all the care they could in their homes, to make sure that it was a peaceful process. So it was very much a family care process. It's not like I mean, doctors would visit the households, but the family was doing the day-to-day caring for the dying family member. Now, with hospitals being so much more readily available and where we get our best medical treatment, I mean, we've shifted the experience of dying with our families. We've shifted away from that, and we now typically die in institutions or hospitals. As it says here, more than 80%. Um, so the care for the dying has now shifted to professionals rather than family members. Um, a Canadian study, recent Canadian study, found that 71% of subjects stated that they wanted to be at home when they died. So even though most of us, by far the great majority of us are dying in institutions and hospitals, I mean, really the majority of us would like to be at home. It's just not considered as normal an option today. Um, besides that, besides more than 80% of us dying in institutions or hospitals, I mean, we can see that nearly 20% of Americans die in nursing homes. But an increasing number of people are choosing to die in the humane atmosphere of a hospice. I talked about hospice care in the first section of this chapter. And remember, it is considered a better death in a sense. I mean, you are cared for by caring individuals. Family is often present. Your death is given dignity. You have a lot of choice on how to die, and so you're not in a sterile medical environment. You're in much more home-like environment, and you can also receive hospice services in your own home, which more and more people are choosing to do. And that concludes the second section of chapter 17.